Okay,
I
yeah.
mean, okay, yeah, you have to tell them
Yeah.
how we want to start the energy of this podcast.
Clever diversion was just dipping Cheetos into the tea.
Not just any Cheetos. The
Spicy
spicy
ones,
jalapeno cheddar Cheetos.
which are the best ones.
My
But
next question
now
is, what type of tea?
the tea is Earl
Cheetos
Grey,
now.
which is a great type of tea, but now it has Cheeto dust in it.
I wanted to feel European.
That's famously done in Europe.
I want to
Cheetos
Oh
pause.
yes,
tea.
European Cheetos,
for-
the best kind. The ones
Is
with
that
the
jalapenos in
sunless-
them are the most European.
So it's
of
Earl
all the
Orange
Cheetos.
now, right?
I wanted to feel
you've ruined
fancy
the
before we
tea
started.
And the Tito's. Cheetos
Welcome
and Earl
to
Orange.
the Spiciest Salsa 2021, where our group of friends decides what the spiciest salsa was in this past year.
Is that our
And in
new
this
branding
case,
initiative?
the salsa. The salsa is just a metaphor for video games. We're still
The
coming up
problem
with
is
the
they're
name of the
not
whole thing.
welcome because we've been inflicted with spicy hot Tito's.
Yes,
Tito's.
Like,
You're
right
right.
away.
That's the new
Please-
podcast name. The
Oh, no.
Tito's. As in, what's the Tito's? That's
I'm
the
writing
Tito's.
that down.
Yeah.
That's the Tito.
Welcome
And
everyone
that's
to the
the
Spicy Hot
Tito's.
Tito's 2021.
Welcome to the Tito's 2021.
This
Welcome
is a terrible
everyone
start.
to the Spicy
All right,
Hot Tito's 2021.
everyone go around and introduce yourself.
Hey,
No.
I'm Zeus, and
That's not how you
you're
pronounce
probably watching on my channel right now, not Clever Diversions, but that's
Ooh,
okay.
Shots
Oh, no.
fired.
You can fix that right now.
Spilling the
I
Tito's all
have
over.
played video games for at least a few months, and I have opinions on them.
All
That's
right,
cool.
I'm Clever Diversion. You are probably listening to my podcast all the time in your dreams. And I did the Tito's thing earlier. You'll remember that. And we have a very good podcast where we have a few new guests that I'd like to introduce. One of them is the beautiful and lovely Shaunasaur.
Hello. I'm Shaunasaur. I don't stream games very often on Twitch. I do lots of art though. I do that on Instagram and also sometimes on Twitch. But I am here to share some games that I love and enjoy and to debate some games with these lovely people.
As a plug, Shaunasaur has a wonderful series where they draw a series of Pokemon, and they draw all of them, and it's great.
And
From memory also.
yeah, resulting in hilarious effect. Also, my brother joins us for our perhaps annual podcast.
Hello, I'm Hale Noxid, the most famous streamer who never streams. You're probably watching this on not my stream, on either Zeus's or Clever Diversions.
Hi, I'm the Sunless. I don't stream because I'm allergic to Twitch. If you hear
But
me
he's a
cough, that's
consummate
why.
genius game designer.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
sure.
So he'll be
Put it that
weighing
way.
very heavily into these Tito's.
He'll just be saying the correct things for us.
Yes, the objectively correct opinion at this annual Tito's Awards.
Yeah.
And our other roommate, Carbon Speed Dating, is also here, and we're very
Hello.
excited to welcome them.
Fantastic name, by the way.
Yeah. It
Very
made me laugh.
good.
It
It
made
is
me laugh.
wonderful.
That's why I kept it. Yeah, no, I don't play as many games as you folks, but I certainly like talking about them. So I'm usually in the room when you guys are playing the games. So I'm pretty familiar with most of these.
And has made one yourself, which is an interstellar journey.
Yeah, no, it's a like a choose your own adventure, like kind of idle thing. So just learning some Unity there.
And is watching like GDC videos every time I walk in the door for the past like 3 months. So she'll also be saying the correct things.
Yeah, there's some really. I mean, I think one of the most interesting things with a lot of this stuff is the back end. So a lot of cool things to be said there.
It's exactly 33% of game designers say that.
Yeah, just 33.
Yeah.
I'm bringing the exact opposite energy the two of them are bringing. I have brought the popcorn video games
Yeah.
Player
that let me
first.
turn my brain off.
Yes,
Oh,
good.
we'll get to my version of that I brought. Don't you get ahead of anything.
Yeah. All right. So to round out our introductions, shall we first start with some of the honorable mentions, or should we mention the games that we're all bringing?
I think start with the games we're bringing, and maybe
Yeah.
at just the same time mention some honorable mentions.
Honorable
Yeah.
mentions are at the end.
Yeah,
I
I thought we were
thought.
saying
Oh,
yeah,
that's
that,
right.
honorable
it kind of
mentions
makes
for
sense to put those
next
at
to
the
last.
end.
Yeah, we
Let's
did a
go
smart
down the
decision and
list.
put them right before the reveal.
Ooh.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So it's like,
Love
hey,
the
before we get
diversion.
Yes.
What did you bring to this
Oh
year's
boy.
The
Okay.
Spiciest Salsa?
So in the spiciest salsa / besties ripoff tradition, I am bringing one game that I absolutely love and genuinely played like hundreds and hundreds of hours
Yep.
this year, and then a game I think is gonna win. So
Bold.
And kind of an adversarial pick because I was really hoping.
yeah,
Well, please go
a
on.
politically targeted pick. So the game I love and streamed for any of my fans listening to this right now is called The Hunter, all one word, lowercase the, Call of the Wild,
Edgy. Very edgy.
with a colon.
It's supposed to, it comes with a
it's
hashtag at the front.
it's a
'cause
really
that's how
interesting
games are
game. It's
named.
like one of those games that I just seem to pick up that I think are really good, but no one else plays or likes. Um, and it's like often made by a Nordic company, like along the lines of Vermintide 2, which is really good. And you guys should play it all the time. As with Hunter Call of the Wild, we'll get into it when we actually hit the rounds for it. But it's a hunting game. It's open world. It recently released like 2 really interesting maps. It's been going since I think like 2017, and it's part of a legacy of a really popular original The Hunter, which was I think a free-to-play online like 2013 game. And yeah, it's The Hunter
TM.
Call of the Wild. So
All caps.
that's like, I don't know. I don't expect it to get very far, but I loved it certainly a lot, and I just like simulators in general. And like, I'm the weird kid that plays fishing games, so that's why I brought it. The other one is Hideo Kojima's epic opus Death Stranding, where you have to deliver packages, which is harder than it seems because of the ghosts and also the depression and also terrorism. All right, Shauna, sorry, you want to take a shot at it?
Yeah, wait, okay. So are we doing our actual like introductions for the games, or are we just naming them off?
We're just naming them off and letting
Okay, because
people
I have a
know.
lot to say about both of these. So
Oh,
I'll
yeah,
keep
we'll
it
get
short.
They'll
there.
be in the rounds. Just a
Yeah.
brief introduction.
My elevator pitch for these is I'm bringing Potion Craft, which is still an early access game, but it's made by a fairly small studio, and it is a extremely delightful little game about being a potion seller / alchemist, and it's wonderful. And I'm also bringing A Short Hike, which is also made by a very small developing, and it just came out on Switch this year. It came out, I believe, either 2020 or 2019. But I played it this year, so I'm sharing it with you all this year.
Awesome.
All right, Sunless, you want to take it away?
Sure. I'm bringing one game that got snubbed at the Game Awards, Psychonauts 2. Probably should have won something. And another game that only a few or none of you who have ever heard of called Earth Defense Force 5.
Except for
I don't think
Noxid
it
and I, who
Definitely.
love it to
Which
death.
definitely got snubbed.
Oh, yeah.
It absolutely got snubbed at all Game Awards ever. Also didn't come out this year, but I played it a lot this year, so that's what counts.
Mhm.
It should be mentioned that a lot of these picks, our Game of the Year 2021 is not necessarily just made of games that came out this year, but games that we either played this year or were particularly meaningful to us this year.
Yeah, it's our
We're-
2021 list, not yours.
Yeah. You
We're
don't get
not
to choose
confined
this.
by rules like
Yeah.
You don't get to
time.
have opinions, viewers. Sorry.
Mhm.
Carbon speed dating. What are you bringing?
Yeah, so I have a slightly different kind of game that I usually play than a lot of you folks. So typically more co-op games or especially very strong story-focused games. So It Takes Two is a really, really great couch co-op game that I ended up playing this year. that was turned out first off to be like 3 times as long as I was expecting when I started, which was always nice, but also just a really sweet game. And the third Life is Strange game, which is kind of a trilogy, only in like kind of thematic ways, but is a really strong end of a trilogy in that kind of way. So like it's a very great place to start the series, or like me, it was a very strong contender for probably the best of the 3.
Is that True Colors?
Yeah, True Colors, that's what it was called.
Mm.
Excited.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right,
I
Hail Noxid, do you want to go?
Um, as my brother mentioned before, I kind of went with something that might be a contender and something that's just near and dear to my heart. I brought The Ascent, which is a dual stick shooter, isometric cyberpunk game. It's something that honestly, by game design, I thought I would just despise. But I picked it up because of the soundtrack. It sounded really the music sounded really good in it, and I started playing it, and it hit just all the right tonality beats for me for that kind of world. So it really kind of was a surprise contender for me. And then I brought Outriders, which is a loot and shoot. And I'll get into that later.
Yeah. I'm not surprised that Hail Noxid picked a game based on its soundtrack first, but then also found out how close it was to Baldur's Gate, and then Cyberpunk, and then just played the hell out of it.
Yeah.
All right, Suisse,
It's
you're
good.
up.
Well, I brought. I didn't go with the style of the rest of my spiciest salsa mates here.
Suis
Because
came out so winning.
I brought. I mean, I had
Winners
a
only.
huge, I had a huge, amount of trouble trying to decide what I was going to bring because I wanted to bring more games than were allowed. I brought Inscription, which is a game that's beautiful because it's not as it seems, and I brought Outer Wilds, which I was told to play, and now that I have, I consider it incredibly important. I'm excited to talk about them both. I really am.
Yeah, those are. We'll get very, very into those afterwards, but also just like the power players. Outer Wilds. I think like how long ago did that game genuinely come out? Because Polygon called it like the best game of the decade.
Dang.
I think
Last year?
2019 or 2020. Yeah.
But it's important to note its DLC
2020.
recently released.
That's true, and we are currently playing through the DLC in this household, and boy, this game is fantastic and does things that I've never seen in gaming before, and I'm looking forward to it.
Mid 2020, by the way.
Okay.
Great. Clever Diversion. Do you wanna host and take it away and guide us to our decision?
I have one quick thing that I do want to touch on before we get into explaining these wonderful games.
Hmm.
Partially because Inscription is on the list, also because of other games. How spoilery, and do we have any spoiler safe ways of doing this?
Yeah, we need to establish the spoiler rules up front, and we also
Yes.
need to establish the like competition rules up front.
Mm-hmm.
So I will say this out right away. The one I'm worried about most is Outer Wilds, as I have not
Same.
played it, but plan to probably tomorrow. So unfortunately, just couldn't quite
No,
get
Yeah,
it started
I
in
think
time.
I'm in the same boat.
in
I
in
think-
conversations like this, we have to just say like use your best judgment conservatively, which is the only
Yeah.
time I'll advise people to be conservative.
Don't talk about plot specifics.
Yeah.
A good rule of thumb I've come to learn is discuss it as if you've played 2/3 of the game.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah. And then
most games can be discussed in depth with their qualities and negatives, unless there are you can always do like, oh, but the ending is incredible, you have to finish this, that kind of thing. But don't say what it is, obviously.
Well, I mean, like you've just described both of my games, so
it's true.
Yeah,
it's
you
true.
produced
I mean,
I
but
was
we
definitely
knew.
thinking about those two in particular.
No, Zeus, you knew this when you selected those games. Okay, that is
I do.
that's your
I
handicap.
selected
all right.
2 games that are
can't talk about.
No,
Yes.
Zeus. I brought the Hunter Call of the Wild. Okay, so you don't get to complain.
See, don't buy into it. Clever Diversion's just cheating in the other direction. He picked a game that never ends.
That's right. It's got to win for sure.
You want a
shit.
10,000
You
hour
shoot
game? Here
two
it
different
is.
types of deer.
Can I drop mine for Destiny 2?
All right, so let's talk about upfront. I don't want this to be super competitive. One of the things in the podcast that we mirror this off of, the Besties, constantly complains about, the inherent problem in comparing art expressions in a competitive media at first. If you love certain games and you think that they're supposed to go beyond what they make it to, I'm sorry, but also relax. It's chill. They're great games. They made it to the Besties conversation for our friend group. So, they have their day in the sun. And also just like, life doesn't have to be as competitive as all that, but it does give us structure for our podcast. So without further ado, do we want to start round 1? Zeus, will you take it away?
Sure. Round 1 is the Ascent brought by Hail Noxid versus Psychonauts 2 brought by The Sunless.
We should also probably outline what our structure for each round is going to be.
Yes.
We have a preliminary greeting, a quick poll if it's needed for time reasons or for otherwise like expediency, and that's just a judgment call. An explanation of the first game, usually at the top, pitch for the first game, explanation of the second game, which is the one on the bottom, pitch for game 2, short discussion, and then we choose a winner. We're going to try to keep this short-ish, but anyone who's watched the series before will know that we are always in danger of running long, but, it's important. We only do this once a year, and we want to be proud of the discussions that we have, so don't feel restrained or restricted to mention points.
Great. So without further ado, Hail Noxid, would you like to give an explanation for what is the Ascent?
Yeah, so to kind of build on, I mentioned it is, I think it's important to emphasize it is cyberpunk. It is not obviously Cyberpunk 2077. I feel like I picked this game because it's what I wanted that game to be.
I was just going to accuse you of that if you didn't already self-say it.
Yeah, both in its tone and its vibe and its grit. Sunless and Zeus were able to play this with me for a little bit. They got a little a palate tasting of this game, and I think they would agree that it hits like that dystopian humor pretty well.
Oh yeah.
Tone wise, and it is a world that like very very quickly I wanted to just like step into. I the joke for me is I'm a big tabletop RPG nerd. And if I play a video game that I want to turn into a tabletop campaign, like that game has done it for me. And
I was just
I
going to
have
say,
never wanted to run a dystopian cyberpunk campaign
well, I was just
until
going
I
to say,
played this.
isn't it, the second I saw that game, I'm like, oh wow, Shadowrun made a new game. Awesome. I bought all the Shadowrun games on Steam for super, super cheap like a few months ago. That's great.
So that's something I will say about this game is, there are the big contenders, Cyberpunk, Shadowrun, like Blade Runner, stuff like that, that like in this genre. And I mean, this game is doing it better, I think.
Ooh, better than
And
Shadowrun. What a shot.
yeah, like, I mean, it doesn't have the cool fantasy, magic and tech magic and stuff, but I mean, like, um, it is a dystopian cyberpunk futuristic world, um, with like super AI, and your planet basically gets turned upside down because a company goes bankrupt. Uh, like, it's just dystopian cyberpunk, and I loved it. And to get into the gameplay, it is a twin stick shooter. So your left stick is controlling your WASD, and your right stick is controlling which direction you're actually aiming your gun. And at the very high difficulties, it plays kind of like Enter the Gungeon. Um, it can the higher difficulties, a little bit of a bullet sponge fiasco, but there are clever mechanics inside of it that force, like, you can change the way you play and actually play it smart, and you get a lot out of it. It's not just like, oh, I have to sit here for 5 minutes and shoot a thing.
Nice.
Also, you can explode so many people.
So many. Oh man.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, at the end of the day, it's fun. It's kind of just mindless shooting fun, with good plot and voice acting and stuff.
Yeah. And with that, Sunless, do you want to give your explanation of Psychonauts 2?
Psychonauts 2, sure. Psychonauts 2 is a third-person puzzle platformer action game sequel to the very old Psychonauts 1 by Double Fine. And I brought it because it does the rare thing in that it is a really, really good sequel of a really good game that improves over its predecessor in basically every way. Like Psychonauts 2 has the same stylized art style as Psychonauts 1, but with higher fidelity to make things, pop more and work better. It's got the same uh, simplistic but still challenging and fun platforming system, but with more tools, and it's smoother and has more tech built into it. Um, and the story is still good. All the characters are still good. And it's a it's just a really really fun, good single player action adventure, which has kind of been having a little bit of a resurgence, I think, recently. The big AA and AAA single player games, and it's just really nice to see one that does the style right and continues a a franchise or an IP that people really love, and does it well.
That's fantastic. So something I'd like to do is a quick poll. I want to get a frame for. I know we were thinking about doing a quick poll in the beginning if it was needed, but I'm just curious. What do people think is gonna? What do people think the winner of this round is gonna be? Because currently, I'm thinking Psychonauts.
Same.
No, I feel Psychonauts. Mostly just because of the whole fidelity with the art style. I loved the story was fantastic. I'm more story focused though, so I'm always gonna lean towards those.
I was very impressed with the story of the Ascent. The writing in it for something that presented it in a similar fashion as Diablo, I would say, um, was catchy and had those cyberpunk elements that Hale Noxid was really talking about. Hale Noxid, do you disagree? Do you think that the Ascent should win this round?
Um, I think Psychonauts 2 is probably just like objectively the more significant game. I will say Psychonauts 2 kind of did an already iconic game, but with better technology and better technique.
Hmm.
From like lessons learned from such the success that the first one was. Whereas Ascent is kind of entering in, I think, like what is going to be remembered as an important game in a like genre.
Yeah, like a
But
cult favorite.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know, but I think in terms of a game of its own, I would agree. Like that, Psychonauts is a more solid entry as a game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so with that,
I
or
Mhm.
sorry, continue.
I was just gonna mention that having played both of these, the thing I really noticed that's sort of keeping me away from recommending The Ascent, which is a really good game and it's really fun, and man, tagging a horde with their equivalent of corpse explosion or
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the stasis overcharge and all that is wonderfully visceral and extremely entertaining. But then the game just it doesn't feel quite finished. It's just too buggy in the co-op, which I think would have made the game a lot more fun if the co-op worked really well. And it was as seamless and functional as Psychonauts 2, because like, that matters, right? The game
Yeah,
needs to work for everyone involved, even if it's legitimately amazing. The level designers on Ascent are visionaries. They're
yeah,
so good.
they have like, I mean, and it's subtle stuff too, because you'll be walking in the isometric camera angle, and then you'll turn a corner, and the camera will shift and pan to kind of like reveal like a significant like architecture in the background, and like will kind of make that the focal point, and your character drops off of the focal point. And just like artistically, it's just so satisfying, and then it goes back to its regular. But yeah, I get what Sunless is saying is there are just those little polish bugs
I was
that I
going
think
to
a lot of
mention.
games suffer from.
Yeah.
I was also going to mention the camera angle shifts and the sense of uh, craftsmanship that the Ascent shows is truly impressive. In Diablo 3, you had a camera change maybe once or twice in the entire game, and it was very significant moments. And they only did that so often because they wanted to make it meaningful. The Ascent manages to make that camera movement meaningful to show this beautiful environment they've crafted every single time they do it. And I really do love it. But like the Sunless said, we had a bug that really prevents me from wanting to go play it again, where I can't buy weaponry. The main focus of the game is these shooting mechanics, and the client crashes every time I want to buy a gun, and that's a bummer. Um, I I think that my vote for Psychonauts comes from the genuine surprise that they seem to work so many. You know when you're playing a video game and you have that moment where you say, "Oh, oh yeah, that's really neat." Uh, they've packed so many of those, so much attention to detail into this world and gameplay style that I'm really impressed by, and that's why Psychonauts takes it for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the thing is, I think, Psychonauts, obviously Double Fine Studios is very hard to go up against as an indie, first game from, places that maybe no one has heard about in the bigger public sphere. Um, but still, the fact that it like was so impactful is worth noting. Do you feel like we've covered it enough to move on to the other one?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
I
there's plenty of to talk on Psychonauts for the future
please.
rounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So our next
Leave a little meat on that bone.
uh our next matchup is It Takes
Hey.
Two, the acclaimed like co-op focused game, and Outriders. Speed dating. Would you like to take an explanation of It Takes Two?
Yeah, no, I can get into it. So just a brief overview if some folks aren't familiar with it. It's a couch co-op game. It's kind of action adventure, and in each subsection of the games, like as it's divided into levels, you get different power sets, different locations, different kind of settings, and the whole thing is built around this kind of story about like rebuilding like a broken relationship. So it's a wonderfully compelling story. It's wonderfully animated. It's an absolutely gorgeous game, and the visuals are surprisingly excellent. Like I went into it with basically I bought it because it was said couch co-op, and I was just looking for something to play with my sister. And was not only was it perfect for that, it was probably one of the most expansive co-op experiences I've probably had since getting Steam. Since so often co-op is kind of like secondary. It's like, oh, we made a first player campaign, and then oh, if you want, you can be the second player, but they don't have as many powers. But no, It Takes Two is exclusively a co-op experience. And something I really thought was really interesting at the end of it was every single, not only is it co-op in the sense that you're playing with somebody else, but all the power sets are complementary. So you can't solve any puzzle without the other person. So it's impossible for someone to like fall too far behind in the level. It's impossible for someone to be not as skilled at something else because you're always balancing each other's abilities during the game. So really compelling game, wonderful story, and just a lot of fun to play.
Phenomenal. Let's see. So next is Hail Noxit again. Pitch Outriders. What is
It
that?
is my policy to never stop selling. Always sell my games. Always be selling. I also. It is not a co-op only game, but it feels like a co-op only game. So Outriders is a loot and shooter, and it does not have a great story. It's very forgettable, but it is developed by people who understand very well what the appeal of the genre they were making a game for is, um, which is allowing the creativity to the player to customize what their gaming experience is in terms of the tools available to you. So every class, there are, I believe, 3 or 4 classes, you can map 3 different kind of like elemental powers, um, and you can activate them, and then you have 2 guns. Pretty standard, loadout for a loot and shoot. What they do is through armor sets and every piece of equipment having 2 separate custom slots where you can change their properties. They allow you to change, maybe you want to be like a shooting build or a melee build or a build that, you have to roll in between every shot so that it emphasizes using like single fire guns rather than automatics, or like one, you get like a huge DPS bonus if you stand still for 5 seconds, so you can use like a big Gatling gun or something. And it was really fun to kind of experiment and everything until the end game where it got really exciting. I unlocked a legendary armor set that allowed me to reduce the cooldown on an ability to the length it took to animate that ability. So I had an ability where I like charge and then Hulk smash at the end of the charge. And I went from like, oh, this is a cool ability, it does some damage, to that I stopped using guns. I only Hulk smashed. And my friends watched me just go through the map, Hulk smashing everything all the time. And it was ridiculous, and it was fun, and it was funny, and every class had 60 different ways of doing something along that line. There were like armor sets that there was like an AoE kind of like flame dot that they could a class could put down. My buddy unlocked a armor set where it never dropped, so he would just run and throw it in the entire map and then kite them all back to us, where I would inevitably like Hulk smash 50 billion times in a row. I mean, it was great. It's just fun. It's simple, dumb, shoot and loot fun.
Wow, that does sound like
Yeah.
what a great synopsis. Yeah, good work.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the
Um,
thing, is like every time I saw that game, I was like, so am I playing Borderlands or am I playing Destiny 2?
You're
And
playing Gears of Borderlands, I think is what you're playing.
Yeah, it is.
Hmm.
Yeah, it is the Destiny of Gears of Borderlands.
Yeah, no, yeah.
One of the really cool features in it is the fact that a la Diablo 3, I believe, where there's like a world difficulty meter that you can change. They allow you to do that, so you can make it more difficult and you get better loot from enemies, but you can modularly change it as you're playing a level.
Oh,
So if you're partied up with your friends and your one of your buddies gets online, hops in your group, is a little undergeared, you guys can, without stopping the progression of the actual story that you're going through, you can just drop the difficulty of the mission while you're playing it, rather than having to like reload it or restart. You just bump it down to their level, finish it out, and you can grind. Your friend can just hop in, and like it was so fluid with how you can like pick up a person. Um, have
that's
randoms
phenomenal.
join your mission while you're doing it. I would play. I booted it up kind of in prep for this. I would play missions by myself, and then someone would join, and then I would bump my world level up because now I have an extra person with me, so we can handle
Little
a little bit more.
little attention to detail for co-op like that is something that brings me so much appreciation. I was playing the Ascent from or Ascent from the Ashes earlier, and I didn't find that ability to really join another player and have that ease of hop in, hop out, and it really does make a game.
yeah, it reminds me of as if Destiny 2 didn't have to be balanced and was more fun because of it.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much it. I played the demo or the beta or the whatever the PC launch beta thingy
Yeah.
Mhm.
way back when. And yeah, like it was a lot of fun. I loved the co-op and it felt good. Like it had
Yeah,
that meaty Gears of War
yeah.
chunk to
Everything
it.
kind of had that like visceral like feedback
Heavy
It
that
was
you kind
bullets.
of want.
No
it
bullets
was
under 50 cal.
it was
Yeah,
paunchy.
yeah.
I want to hear Carbon Speed Dating talk more about It Takes Two, because I didn't get the opportunity to play this game, especially since I thought it was PS5 exclusive, which it's evidently just not. So I was
Nope.
super
No,
wrong on that.
I played it as a PC game. That's the only kind of games I can play since I don't have any consoles right now. Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing I would say about it is it's one of those great games that can show people that don't typically play games what makes games great. Like I played this like myself, which I don't typically play, extremely tactically or mechanically heavy games. I focus more on story stuff. And it was such a delight to play with my sister, for instance, who also doesn't play very many games in general. And it's a sort of game, like when I was done with it, I sort of described to her as like the kind of game that you might want to play on like a date. Like it has a lot of that really appealing. Not only is it a very sweet game in terms of story, it's a very easy game to pick up. It's very accessible, and people who might not be as familiar with, say, very heavily, uh, if you're trying to introduce someone to games, you might not necessarily want to throw them into, say, Destiny 2. But if you want to show them what makes games great, this is a great example of that. And I think that's a huge reason why it ended up winning the Game of the Year for the Game Awards was because not only is it beautiful, but it's also like just kind of a shining uh, beacon of what games can be, just as without having all of the baggage that comes with having like, all right, have you played games for the last 10 years? Otherwise, you're not necessarily going to love the new Elden Ring.
Hmm.
But this is certainly a game that anyone can pick up and is very. It made me excited to get into other games as well. So I'm looking into. This is kind of the first game that I started with. I'm like, oh, look at this! I forgot how much I like these kind of games, and getting back into other kind of games as a result of that.
Speaking of
Yeah.
that type
It
of game,
seemed. Oh, hang on. Sorry.
yeah, go for it.
Um, I hadn't heard of it until maybe like a week ago or so when I was browsing the Steam winter sale and I saw this thing come across the screen that was its little thumbnail was covered in too many awards for me to see what game it was.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh,
No, it
hello,
Yeah.
what's this?" That
Yeah,
looks
no,
interesting.
I had actually pre-ordered it before I even because I'm always on the lookout for any co-op game because it's strangely embarrassing how few truly like couch co-op games I can like half
Hmm.
decent ones I can find on Steam. So like for the most part, like I have Outer Wilds, but I haven't played it yet because I was looking for a game over this last break to play with family, and it's not necessarily the most fun thing for folks who aren't already into it to be able to just sit and enjoy a game. It's something that's much more fun to get engaged with. So instead, I was looking for co-op games, and I had actually pre-ordered this game, It Takes Two, as a result because just I saw the trailer for it and I'm like, "Oh my goodness, it's co-op. I don't care about anything else." And then it turned out to also be excellent, which was just a nice surprise.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot just from watching trailers of it. It looks kind of like a lot of the puzzles look like Portal 2 puzzles, like Portal 2 co-op. The way that you
A
have to
couple of
like use
a
each
couple
other's
of the
mechanics to complete them.
yeah, a couple of the so each like level, I would call it, is like more in like a Mario sense where it's like you're in a lava area, you're in a water area. Each subsequent level has different skills you get there. So you have like one skill set that's one person gets a one side of a magnet, the other person gets the other, so you can repel each other, that kind of thing. And some of the skills are very similar to things like Portal, where you have to use each other for different problem solving, which was a lot of fun, very
My
satisfying to do because you
my
have, especially when someone's sitting on the couch next to you, you can really. It would be much harder to do online. Like that's what I'll say is
Hmm.
there are certain great online co-op experiences, but it's really great to have somebody right next to you to be able to organize your thoughts with.
So can you play it online?
I don't think so. I've never looked. I kind of doubt it from how I was looking at it. I think there might be like some of them are kind of time sensitive. I'm not sure if it has the kind of
It says it has
response.
online co-op,
Yeah, all
so
right, I believe
probably
that.
can.
Well, it's wonderful. I think I would. The only thing I would say is I do think it's kind of like when I was saying that it was kind of like a date game. I think it's one of those games that's a little bit more fun in person to play with somebody else because
Mhm.
it's one of those things you kind of want to sit with for a couple hours as opposed to jump on, jump off, uh, looting kind of game.
In addition, it does have a client that's free. So if someone owns the game and wants to play it with someone who does not, and they're playing it over the internet, you can still do that, which I really appreciated.
Yeah, that's fun. I like that.
I really appreciate the parallel between Portal 2 because I can't think of another game where that was this based on co-op gameplay. And Portal 2's co-op gameplay was kind of an add-on. It was a separate campaign from the game, and I don't know if I've ever seen such a game that is so integrated on two-seat co-op, and that's really exciting to see.
Yeah, I mean, previous to this, like the last really big game that I remember for me was Halo 2, where like obviously it wasn't built for two players. So anytime you get to a cutscene, it's very apparent that you're, not telling the same story. But it was very, it was still built in a way that really accommodated for this. And not only does this accommodate for it, but it actually like highlights how special it is. So it doesn't feel just like, oh, we spent the last 2 weeks of development quickly adding co-op to it.
Mhm.
Well, I'm pretty convinced. I like the sound of Outriders. I can get behind solidified fun, and just a celebration of gaminess. But I really think It Takes Two takes it for me here. I think the combination of beautiful co-op, which is so rarely seen, and seemingly, if I have this right, a pretty good story,
Oh, wonderful
um,
story. Yeah.
Absolutely.
really just takes it for me.
Yeah, I'll talk about the story more when we get to when It Takes Two continues, because I'm probably going to vote for it as well.
Yeah.
Though Outriders is definitely something that I need to remember to try again. Because I remember at launch it was having a bad time on launch, as is true of a lot of games this year, honestly. Um, and so I give a good chunk of my vote to It Takes Two for having a good launch. Which
Yeah, I played the entire game in about 2 sittings. I think the whole thing ended up being, first off, it was way longer than I expected, but I ended up playing it over 2 days, and I didn't encounter any issue with any of the game, which was a lot of fun.
Wow. What's everyone else's thought?
I'm
Shall we
also
just
feeling It Takes Two, just because I enjoy the. It seems like a more rare game, and I also don't want to like overshadow a game that sounds also really fun just by like, oh, this one got more awards, so therefore it wins. Because Outriders also seems really fun, and I enjoy the. At first, I was like, these are two weird ones to pit against each other, but now I'm seeing their similarities in a lot of good ways. Like, oh, they both sound like they have really interesting co-op, as like a as a really fun and central aspect to both of these.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should name the rounds because that's fun for me. Because like
Ooh, what do you
this
name this
one could be
round?
like the cool like approaches to co-op round where like you can modify the difficulty and like it's more sensitive to co-op in that way.
Friends
And
with
also it's just like
benefits,
really
if you
fun to
will.
match up powers.
This is the friends with benefits round.
Oh yeah, yeah, the
Nice.
Friends
There
with
you go.
Benefits round. Yeah.
Yeah, I think just like focusing on that power stuff too, because it sounds like both games are very
Yeah,
specific in
and
that way.
Mm-hmm.
and to Carbon's defense, there's a reason It Takes Two got so many awards.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
What I will say was when I was watching the Game Awards live, I did not expect it to win the final one. I wanted
Yeah.
to, but I did not expect it, and it was such a delightful surprise.
Yeah, I mean, like Sunless mentioned, Outriders had some rough stuff, both with like its loot allocation and a couple bugs and stuff. And to the developers' credit, their response was really smart. And to everyone who was active during reported times of like bugs being active, they would give legendaries on random rolls as if you collected them
Nice.
from doing content. Because they're like, yeah, you're enjoying our game despite the struggles that the game has. So we want to award that. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
reward you for your time.
Yeah, that's basically completing difficult content.
Exactly.
The difficulty
Yeah.
is sitting through the login
The-
screen a couple
Oh
of dozen
no,
That's
times.
hilarious.
Right.
that's a bit of a
And
rough award.
yeah, they did a couple of kind of clever like community outreach stuff like that where they really made it apparent like that they valued their fans' time spent in their game, which I think is like honestly really rare, that you have kind of direct feedback from a developer. At the same time, It Takes Two does the same thing by just making a good, full, complete game.
Yeah,
The
from
start.
beginning to end, just beginning to end, it's wonderful.
All right.
Good and done.
So what's the final scores here?
My vote is It Takes Two.
I vote
Okay.
It Takes Two.
Same.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yep, 6-0.
All right. Fantastic.
Also,
It Takes Two. Go ahead.
but I was gonna say before we move on, we can name the first block the style block.
This
Yeah.
bio block is
The cyber
extremely
psycho plot.
good.
All right.
All right, next
Psycho
round is
Cyber round is gonna get great when Outer Wilds hits Psychonauts 2.
Oh no.
I would name this next bracket, these two things are not alike in any way. Wait, no, here it is. They both have technically a forest.
both of these things are not like the other.
Yeah.
They're both in Colorado.
Are they? I thought
Really?
Hunter
Wait.
wasn't in Colorado. I thought you said it was
It
Wyoming.
has Colorado
Yeah,
elements in it.
it's
Oh,
Silver
never
Ridge
mind. All right,
Peaks.
there.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
So
one of the
Colorado-
first games I played on my
Alright.
stream, is because it
Home
was like set in
territory.
in like rocky flats with the nuclear waste disposal being like
Oh,
the main
no,
element
you're
of the
right.
story.
You're right.
Actually,
I forgot about that.
This round should be called Surprisingly Good Story and then Not Surprisingly Good Story.
Yeah, that's true.
I
But
can't
for-
make a new
For
round.
the
Hold on.
reason that everyone expected it to be a good story in the first place.
Surprisingly good story for Colorado.
Oh.
I mean, I had a fairly long discussion with Zeus on the ride back from getting coffee about how Life is Strange actually deals with Colorado, and I suspect Call of the Wild actually, from what it sounds like, did a far better job of actually representing Colorado than Life is Strange. Even though I
Yeah, one of the
enjoy
few
Life is
things I
Strange.
know about Life is Strange is they light a lantern as a memorial and let it fly off into the
have
distance.
thoughts.
I freaked out. I just watched like
No.
the trailers
Yeah.
of it, and I saw them lighting that lantern, and I was like,
Yep.
no
No,
way,
okay.
don't you
I'm
dare.
pretty sure that
I-
happened in real life to Superior.
Actually,
Yeah.
I mean,
No.
all I'll say about Superior is there's some stuff coming out about that might make it a less fun
That's
little
awful.
no.
story there. Yeah, but
So,
let me.
so to those who are listening in the future, it's an important historical timestamp that Colorado just had a historically horrible fire that wiped out a
Yeah.
very large number of homes very close to us, and
Yeah, just down the road.
we were
like-
very nearly affected, and
We
our-
almost had to evacuate over 600 homes, 6,200 acres burned, and you know what? It got us a visit from the president. So if that's what
Yeah.
we have to do to get the president to visit Colorado,
Yeah. The
it's
but-
awful, and that is the context that we're referring to.
But going back though to
No
what I
one
was saying
died.
with Life is no one. I mean that they've reported
Hmm.
on yet. I'll say.
Yeah.
One thing I'll say too is from what I can tell with from what you've mentioned, Clever Division about Diversion, sorry, about Call of the Wild. It is much better at representing Colorado just in general because like the Rocky, what was it, Rocky Flats?
yes.
Yeah,
the,
Rocky
the
Flats is a
nuclear
really-
waste storage
well-
facility that is
well-
under our groundwater table.
Yeah, it's actually a really important part of Colorado history. That's where they made the nuclear triggers. So it's actually a really important representation of Colorado, as opposed to as much as and I'll get to talking and praising Life is Strange very quickly, but the main environmental problem. So, like, Colorado is a very famous location for tourism, but for some reason they chose an environmental problem that doesn't really exist for us. I thought that was very odd. So, in the story, the environmental problem they're talking about is mountaintop removal, which, if you're not familiar, is a type of mining technique where you blast off the top of the mountain to mine it. And that is not really a thing in Colorado. They basically wrote a Virginia story.
Yeah,
And-
I have never heard of that type of mining before.
Well, it's
Yeah.
it's an incredibly devastating, incredibly harmful form of mining that's very common in the the Appalachian region, and it's horrible in a lot of ways. But the one thing I'll say about it is not really an environmental problem that Colorado deals with. So I thought it was very odd that they put it here, but didn't choose an environmental problem that's actually relevant for us.
Yeah, for
So it
reference,
felt-
Carbon Speed Tating and Shaunosaur both, I think, have biology degrees. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I have evolutionary and ecology, so evolutionary biology and ecology. So it was very odd to play this game, where visually I would say it was pretty good. So like the main area that you play in Life is Strange is this small, mountain town that is kind of a mix of Netherland, which is down the road from us, which is just kind of a very cute little mountain town, kind of what you imagine. It has in the main area, it has a couple dozen homes and a couple dozen like like food and restaurants and stuff,
Like
and
touristy
also downtown
business.
Boulder. So it's like, you know, if there's just like a strip, it's basically a strip mall, an outdoor strip mall that's very beautiful. But they did a good job, I think, mostly on the visuals. But when it actually comes to the story, it felt like they did weirdly. I would have been happier if they'd done a little bit more like specific Colorado stuff for it.
They kind of phoned it in at the end.
Yeah, I mean, I feel bad because I don't really think they necessarily phoned it in. They got a couple of things right, but it just the moment I was playing it, it took me out of the moment. I'm like, I have lived here my entire life, and I could name on my hand 10 more things that I would have talked about environmentally in Colorado before getting to mining.
You know, like
It is
people lighting lanterns and letting them float off into
That
the woods.
Yeah, I mean, my God, I would have probably talked about wildfires. I mean, my goodness, Colorado's wildfire season now, where
Yeah.
the sky is red now in
In
August.
January.
Well, that too. Like we had that massive fire in Superior,
Hmm.
like the day before we got 4 inches of snow. Like, so there's
Yeah.
a lot of this is I feel a little defensive on this just because I love Colorado and I love seeing Colorado in media, and it always disappoints me when it's just kind of phoned in. It kind of reminds me of the X-Files episodes where they go to Colorado, and Colorado apparently has a lot of ferns in it, and it's like a lot of brush and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff, and it's like, oh
Like
wow, you're
Northern
just filming.
California.
Yeah, sounds like you're filming in Seattle.
Yeah, but like
So I get like a little I think Colorado's beautiful, and I'm surprised it's not represented more in media. So
mhm.
especially because we live in a particularly beautiful part of Colorado out here in Boulder, and I mean we're every day when we have to get out to go to the grocery store, we pass by the Flatirons and stuff. So it was interesting to see how Colorado is kind of imaged elsewhere. So like what people think when they think of Colorado is usually what you see in media rather than actually what Colorado looks like. So you can always tell Colorado if they decide, or you can always tell when they don't know what they're talking about with Colorado whenever they put any kind of undergrowth in a forest.
Yeah.
Nope,
Like
Colorado is pine trees.
like in the first
You just get like a strip of dirt. If you see dirt on the ground and it's covered in pine needles and it's super acidic, hey, you found Colorado. There you go.
yeah, like not
That's
knowing that the game was set in Colorado, just from the first like 2 minutes or so of the trailer, I was like, oh, is this set in
Yeah.
Colorado? Huh, wow,
I
look
was
at that.
I was so happy when I heard that, and it's like I said, it's not to say that they didn't like. I think the actual location that they're in, the mountain town, really really reminded me. I would have kind of liked it if they had just chosen a place in Colorado. I don't quite remember what the place was called. I'm like I had never heard of it, which doesn't mean anything because there are 1,000 tiny small towns in Colorado, but it would have been big enough for me to know about, and it kind of looked like they just sort of combined, like I said, Boulder and Netherland, like just kind of shrunk it down. So
Mhm.
it did capture some parts of that, but it still was very the level design. I think could have been a little bit like more Colorado specific, is what I'll say. It's like if you want to talk about environmentalism, it's really important to talk about specifics. Like like this is what we'll talk about with Call of the Wild in a minute. Like the environmental stuff that they talk about in Colorado for Call of the Wild is actually Colorado. Actually dealing with the repercussions of having nuclear waste and all this kind of stuff. So like there's a very famous bar in the Rocky Flats that my dad told me about when I was younger that was literally radioactive because all the people that worked at the factory developing the triggers go to this bar afterwards and they brought all their radioactivity with them.
Yeah.
So it's entirely and like you could still go there. I'm pretty sure it's still there and it's still radioactive, and like obviously this is going to have repercussions on the local place. Like it only in the last I think 5 or 6 years opened up to the public again to go. Like I
Yeah.
wanted to bring
If
a Geiger
you're
counter out and actually
courageous
check
enough
it
to
out.
go,
I mean, I'll go once. That's what I'll say. It's the
Yeah.
same. Like I'll go
you'll
once.
get your
and
dose
I'll bring
for
a
the
Geiger
year.
counter, and I'll wear like I don't know, like a lead hat or something. Like
There
it'll
you
be
go.
fine.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It's probably fine, but I'm just saying like that is actually I think that is a much more honest representation
So
of like
I want to do the
talking
poll
about
thing
environmentalism. Yeah.
just because like I'm a little bit I'm pretty sure that Hunter Call of the Wild does not have enough public will
Literally
I
will.
to beat out one
know.
of the like historic favorites of story games in general, which is
Well, it's
Life
like
is
maybe
Strange.
I guess what we should do probably, and I kind of got sidetracked, is actually talk about the actual games a little bit. Like, let's give an
Let's
overview
Oh, wait,
I
are we,
of
want to skip
both.
the poll because I am actually undecided on this one, and I want to
Oh.
I
hear
would,
your pitches on both
yeah.
of these. Yes, that's right.
a quick
That's
aside?
right, Clever Diversion. I consider your likes more than I let on, and I would like to hear you pitch Call of the Wild right now. What is the game?
So the game, it's a hunting game where you shoot animals and they like look in your
Never
general
mind.
direction, but then they don't see you. But that's when you want to shoot them the most.
You know,
That's
like when you go to those arcades at the movie theater.
yeah,
They have,
exactly.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
And like it's
Do you have a light gun?
Hale Noxon might not have his mic on, but the thing is, like, I like kind of these niche, like small, like out of the way genres. Like speed dating was talking before about It Takes Two, requiring a lot of genre knowledge, or not requiring a lot of genre knowledge, and that being the good part of it, which is, I think a big problem in video games in general. Is that like you kind of have to have played video games already by this point in order to really get how to do these things. It's very hard to like break into a new genre, and that's kind of what I did with, hunting games in this way. And to be fair, like there were some bumps, but for the most part, I was really surprised by an angle of it that I didn't expect, which was its story is actually quite insightful. Many of the way that the game is sold is kind of level by level, which is sensitive to how the company itself developed by making kind of like a free to play, get everyone acquainted with this title, get it into the homes of people, and then, if they like it, they support it. The community is really strong and great. And I don't know, like the actual if I'm fighting for the Hunter Call of the Wild's life in this round, my trump card is like a video that I shared with Carbon Speed Dating and Zeus before, which is like there are things in this game that are so rare that they make you cry and your hands shake and you like freeze, like physically. Like as someone who, loves roller coasters and loves flying and stuff like that, like I actually and like has been an actor like on stage and like done speech and debate for like hundreds and hundreds of people. I have not gotten as nervous in a game recently except for Hunter Call of the Wild and also the Isle, but I did the Isle last year. Uh, so that's like the thing that it has these like once in a lifetime for average gamers things. And if you follow any of the YouTubers or Twitch streamers, they'll often conduct grinds to get the rarest thing in the game for multiple years. Like
And you just got them all nice, quick.
yeah. So like they're the professionals, right? They are professional players of this game, and they don't have these things after like 7,000 kills. I think one of them that came out like recently is upwards of like 1,300 or 13,000 down deer before they find what's called a great one, which is, better than a good one. So that's kind of like the thing about it is like I've been lucky enough to get like some of the medium rare things in this game after, streaming it. But right now I'm sitting at about 400 hours ish. And like, I don't know. I play games kind of in that way with like the Isle or Vermintide 2 is I'll pick these like weird kind of outside games that I just really connect with. And, it keeps me going. Like I want to play this game after we're done streaming. Like, it's my go-to just to like, quite frankly, relax and like have a chill experience of life, which was really important for me being unemployed for the last full year of COVID crisis. And that's something else that like, we often talk about time sinks in games being these like bad things, these like negative things where it's like, oh, it's requires so much. It's just this grind, right? But what about like the positive aspect of grind? Like back in the day, like an aspect of grind wasn't seen as like this negative, evil, kind of immoral manipulation of video games. It's like that's value in a game that if it's fun the whole time through. And, I think that I have had fun the whole time through with Hunter: The Call of the Wild. Every hour that I played of it, I really enjoyed, and there's hundreds of them.
That's incredible.
I was actually. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you please.
I was actually really shocked by this game because as a biology nerd and animal lover, I was like, Mason, you like a hunting game? This is so strange. I was like, oh, this doesn't seem like a fun game. But then I watched you play a bit of it, and I watched your stream, and I was taken aback by how beautiful it was. And there's so much attention to detail, not only in the landscape, which is based off of actual places, and their attention to detail in the history and like the personal stories about every place in this game is phenomenal. And also, the attention to detail in the animals is really, really good. And I enjoy that it does have it does talk about the ethics. It's like, yeah, you get more points for not making the animal suffer, which is good.
Yeah, and I mean, it hits so many different parts of like the things I love. Like, first of all, like when you do shoot an animal, it shows you exactly where your shot went, kind of Sniper Elite style. If anyone's familiar with that genre, which is all of the organs are realistically modeled, and you have to hit them in order to kill ethically, which kind of triggers like a sub skill set, which is shot location on the animal matters a lot. It doesn't matter, like, you can lose out on a once in a lifetime rare trophy if you don't hit the lungs, And like, as someone who worked in radiology, that's a really cool skill set for me to know, because like that's the skill set of radiological imaging, is like locating individual organs in different orientations and angles through the person and knowing exactly where those are. And also, like, they talk about history all the time, which is something that anyone who's seen my channel knows I love intimately, is like this specific calling of where this place in particular came from and its story in history. Like Quachoclinas is set in one of the Muslim pushes in Spain. Oh gosh, I forgot what it is. But like the new map, Rancho del Arroyo, talks about the Mexican Revolution in like the early 1900s, like I think 1910, 1912-ish. But like that time period is the story that they talk about. Like, you get a gun from the Mexican Revolution in that space. The Mississippi map that I just streamed talks a lot about the Freedom Rides and the history of lynching in Mississippi, and like, what the civil rights movement was about, which is such a responsible way to frame your map. And it also evokes this like deep spiritual calling of the land itself, which is so beautiful to me, that like the land has a story.
It's almost like it's the call of the wild or
Okay,
something.
yeah, I guess.
Ring. Oh, who's clever diversion. I'm sorry, there's a phone call for you. It's the wild. It's actually the
ring,
wild.
ring. Hello?
Yeah, hello, this is the wild. I just I
Oh,
want
sorry.
to see
Let me put you on
up.
speakerphone.
Oh,
yeah, I'm doing
no.
a podcast. Sorry, what did you say?
Oh, no, oh, that's kind of neat. Yeah, I just wanted to check in. You doing okay? I like to call every now and then.
No, yeah, it's great. I was actually waiting for a call from the Slightly More Tame. Is that also there, or just?
Yeah, it's just you always kind of say, like, sometimes I wish you would call me.
Yeah, no, I mean that's good. I'll you know what? I'll call you right now. All right, hang up.
I don't. Okay. Click.
Do.
Hello. Sorry.
Oh, hey,
I
Wild.
didn't expect this.
Long time no see.
Oh my god. I was worried you weren't gonna call.
You still being crazy?
You know it. A lot of fires. Anyway, I was just I wanted
nice callback to our greatest trauma.
I wanted to talk to you about this video game that I played recently. So let me patch you through to my friend, Carbon Speed Dating, because I want them to talk to you about Life is Strange the Third.
Well,
The
I mean, I
third.
think we gotta vote, don't we?
Junior the
Well,
third.
We
hey,
haven't
I
actually
need- I
discussed.
think-
Oh, we didn't discuss
haven't
the gameplay. We discussed
We
mining. I'm
haven't
sorry.
even
we were just
discussed.
distracted by the fact that it's in Colorado.
Yeah.
Yeah, so going into Life is Strange, so it is so I don't know, so depending on how much people are familiar with Life is Strange, each game is a new protagonist. There's very little, if any, crossover between any of them. Sometimes there'll be like one character in passing that's similar. And the way that each game is framed around is it's a choose your own adventure with multiple endings, multiple relationships, all this stuff. And there is some sort of supernatural power that the person has in the game, and that is usually an inciting incident, or at least affects the plot in some way. So the first one is probably the one that most people are familiar with. The third one just came out in the last couple of months, I believe, back in September, and it is, in my opinion, the best of the three because it did what I really wanted the series to do, which was it has the best, I'd argue, the best plot, but also the best plot where I don't hate any of the characters, which I really appreciated. So, like in the previous two games, there was always like some aspect of someone's character that was always very annoying. So, one thing that the series has always kind of been known for is it's kind of like very indie. Like there are always characters that are talking about their indie niche music interest, and I'm not a big music person myself, so it's not necessarily something that I personally connect with. But something I really appreciate as the series has gone on is it's very much something that people can make fun of. In fact, there was actually a fairly large like TikTok trend talking about like, oh, here's how isn't it funny how all the Life is Strange games are very much like this kind of um, play style. And one thing I really appreciate in the third one is it never succumbed to making fun of itself, which I really liked. It's kind of like it takes itself as seriously as it can without being so serious that it's not enjoyable. But instead, like for instance, there's an entire arc in the third one where there's like a whole LARPing thing that happens. And it's not treated as anything other than what it is, which is just, hey, this
Nice.
is good fun. No one makes fun of it in the universe. Everyone's super into it. Um, it's surprisingly, it's a good, well, not surprisingly good story, but it's originally it's kind of set up as more of a slice of life until plot happens, and I won't get too much into that because that's really where the game kind of kicked off for me. But even before you get up to that point, it's an entirely enjoyable experience. It's very sweet, has a lot of beautiful moments in it that are very, very memorable. Something else that's really fun about all the Life is Strange in general is they're very much a product of whatever time period they're part of. So the second one in particular is very much about being a person of color in 2016, basically, 2016, 2017. And this one is very much a product of, like I said, maybe a little bit misdirected, but it's very much about like environmentalism and found families and uh, being gay is a huge part of it, although that's been pretty much a consistent theme throughout all three of them. So
I was
it's
hoping
very,
this one would also be gay.
yeah, I mean, the only problem I have with this one, it's kind of an odd choice though what they did in the game, which I thought was perhaps a little. I never want to say this sort of stuff is forced, but it was very odd to play because in the game there's basically two love interests for the main character. There's a guy and a girl, and it kind of felt like the woman was put there because they kind of wanted to have a gay option that looked like Chloe from the first one.
Mm.
Because one character, the guy, has a whole arc and is really important to the plot and is part of like has a character arc and everything, and the other one is just kind of there. And it's like, hey, if you'd like to romance her, you can. And judging from the statistics you get at the end of each mission, that is the person most people chose. But it felt a little bit odd in this one. I felt like it worked a lot better in the first two to have this kind of, LGBTQ representation. And not to say that they don't do it in this game, but I would have liked it better if they had incorporated the woman love interest in perhaps a little bit stronger into the actual plot. It really felt like they had written the story and then added her later.
Yeah,
But
no, I think that's a really strong like commentary because a lot of what I immediately think whenever I look at Life is Strange as a series is like, oh well, the whole thing's just going to take place in a Juno soundtrack.
Yeah, and my God, it's actually kind of funny in this one because there are two basically like storylines you can follow with the main character. One of them is more music centric, like there's literally like a record story you can go to, and the other one is more like focusing on family. And it was so much music centric that I totally missed that I get to the end of the game and they have like these couple of big choices, and one of them is talking about music and like how much the character loves music, and, like, my character as the playthrough had never picked up the guitar,
Huh.
like, outside of cutscenes, so it was very odd to see that they had clearly had this very specific image of what this game was gonna be before they made it, like, it's gonna be about music and environmentalism and LGBTQ stuff, and some of it is incorporated much stronger than others. I still think the actual choose your own, choice is actually really interesting, and there's one, particular choice in the middle of the game that I actually had to stop and think about for an uncomfortably long amount of time that wasn't even so much, important to the plot, but was just such a strong characterization about mental health and its effect on other people that it was an incredibly hard decision to make, and both versions I didn't not necessarily didn't like, but was a lot of things to have to actually come to terms with when you make any kind of decision. It was very impactful in that regard, and the story really comes together in that way. And I would have liked more of that for some of the romance stuff, which like I said, I felt like was kind of tacked on a little at the end.
Sure.
But
You mentioned something earlier about the powers and how the powers in the
oh,
first one differed from
yes.
the others, and I wanted you to talk about
Yeah.
that.
We were talking about that on the ride home. So this is another part that I thought was a little odd in this game, which was so in each game, like I said, there are power sets. So in the first one, it's time control or time manipulation. Second one is telekinesis, and the third one is kind of an emotion-based power where not so much well, you can like see people's emotions. Anger is red, that kind of thing. And the one thing that I thought was really odd was that the reason why I picked up Life is Strange one originally was because the time control power was basically letting me do quick saves on all the choices. Where like, oh, I don't like that choice. Well, let me try the other one. Well, I don't like that choice. Well, let me try the other one. And in this one, it didn't necessarily feel like the powers had very little to do with the plot, which I thought was a little odd. Like it was very much like, "Oh, you have to uncover that this character is mad. How am I supposed to know this character is mad other than the fact that they're banging on the door and trying to get in and yelling on the top of their
Yeah,
lungs?"
I have to be an
So it was
empath to read
yeah.
character.
So it very much felt like there was a book series I read when I was younger where the main character's power set is that he can look at a photo and he can see like he can hear what people are saying in the photo, and literally that power is just what she gets in this essentially with emotions, which in my opinion is just the power of exposition. So we don't have to worry that we don't actually have to be introduced to the fact that these two are having relationship problems in any natural way. We can just kind of skip that, which I think has its benefits and its weaknesses. In one way, it was really interesting to be able to walk around the kind of outdoor mall and just see what people are up to around the mall, and it was actually really fun to see, like, there was one guy who, like, when you, click on him and, like, you check his emotions, he's just yelling at the top of his lungs. He is, like, incredibly angry, it's very startling, and as the game goes on, you can, like, check in on him, and he, like, starts to get, like, anger management help. So
Nice.
it's actually that was an interesting way of doing it, but I would have
Oh,
liked to
that's
have seen
fun.
it I would have liked to have seen it incorporated a little bit better, or not better. It gets better as the game goes on, and especially a lot of the imagery that you end up using with it is incredibly strong and incredibly interesting in that regard. Um, it would, especially when it comes to a couple of the interactions with other folks in the game that have different kind of mental illnesses. It was incorporated very strongly in that regard. Um, it was
Okay.
very interesting to see
So
what
here's
kind.
the thing. I want to vote for Life is Strange 3 now, but also really quick, it is an hour and 18 minutes in, and we've
Okay.
done
Yeah.
3 matchups. So I
I
think we should vote.
Alright.
okay. I'm going to vote for Call of the Wild.
Oh,
Ooh.
see,
I'm
I'm
also
gonna.
Um,
going to vote for Call of the Wild.
I you're honestly the impassioned attention to detail um, is a very like I want to play both of these games. Um, and I also want to demonstrate with my vote that I am that I do value your
Well,
game
don't let me guilt
suggestions.
you into it. I mean, you should vote for the one you honestly think deserves to be game of the year. You know, that's the thing at stake here.
So the reason I'm casting to Call of the Wild is the hunter could have been a Deer Hunter, movie lobby arcade game. It could have done that, and could have been that. That was all it did, and it didn't. And it made a story that was relevant. It made good game design choices. It wasn't just a game where you shoot the deer really well. And like watching it through Clever's stream and stuff, and kind of getting a more in-depth look, I've come to respect that game for really kind of exceeding what my expectation of that a game of that genre could or should be.
That's a fantastic. Yeah, I like that a lot. Honestly, I am really unsure about this one. This is probably my hardest round yet, because then I find myself switching back and forth a lot. I think that games are cultivations of moments that they bring the player, and I think Life is Strange has some astounding moments. Carbon Speed Dating mentioned that they had to think about a choice for a very long time, and I think that's a really important thing that video games bring, is to make you pick your mind about how you want to go about life. And the Hunter Call of the Wild brings those moments of pure surprise and genuine concern and uh, a need for good performance. And I think that Call of the Wild has impressed me a lot. This may change once I play Life is Strange 3. But for now, I think I'm sticking with Call of the Wild.
I think I'm gonna vote for Life is Strange, as it seems to be a more, I don't know, it seems focused.
Yeah.
It seems to do what it set out to do. Um, and also just like as a continuation of a series that continues to be good, like I value that a lot, right? And
Yeah.
especially one that maybe uh like maybe wouldn't be as popular if not for Life is Strange, right? Like this choose your own adventure, emotion driven feelies with powers kind of game is like, I don't know, there are hunting games in every arcade, and I don't really see a lot of those, a lot of Life is Strange stuff, at least not at that, like, I don't know, not at that quality level, not at that size.
Yeah.
It's sort
Uh,
of, yeah.
Yeah.
Go on.
I will choose Life is Strange. Obviously, I brought it, but also a huge reason for it is that the moment it was announced, the actual date it was coming out, I literally got plane tickets to go visit my sister to play it with her. Like like it was a pre-planned event that we were going to share together, and it did not disappoint.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm also feeling Life is Strange as cool as, and like innovative as Call of the Wild is for its genre. I, I'm with uh I'm with the Sunless on this one, that Life is Strange is not only like groundbreaking for its genre, but it's kind of the shining star of its genre, where usually a lot of story based games get overlooked by mainstream media. I feel like Life is Strange has kind of been a good shoe in the door for that genre, and I feel like it continues to do so. I'm also speaking as someone who hasn't played either of these games.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to note that, like, as someone who's played Hunter Call of the Wild a lot but hasn't played Life is Strange, almost at all, except watching Let's Players and watching the trailer as research for this podcast. The thing is, like, I could say many of the things about that also, like, or about many of the things that were lauded for Life is Strange about Call of the Wild also, which is like it is the shining example of its genre. Like no other hunting game is doing the things that it's doing in the popular way that it is doing them, but many are trying and showing how hard it is and failing horribly. But the thing is, like, I think Life is Strange is also standing on the shoulders of giants, but also like I think that Life is Strange is a better game overall, if that makes any sense, even though it's a story game. Like, because while Hunter Call of the Wild has good story, it's not better than Life is Strange 3. You know what I mean?
It's got a good story. It's got a good story for being a hunting
Yeah,
game.
for
Yes,
its
it's
genre. Like, it's doing important
way-
and interesting
yeah.
things for its genre. Also, as a
The
quick
way you described it to me was that it was also surprisingly excellent story.
surprisingly good. That's what yeah, and that's the name of the round, right? Surprisingly, actually good story.
Yeah, I suppose to boil down my thoughts between the two, because they are both strong contenders, I think, is Call of the Wild is doing important things for its genre. Life is Strange 3 is doing important things.
Yeah,
It really
that's
is.
great.
Like,
that's
especially
really
for-
sharp.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
For LGBTQ
Yeah. Also,
stuff,
quick
incredibly
All right.
great for that.
quick
Winner goes
factoid
to-
check for myself. It's the Umayyad conquest of Spain. That's what it is.
Also,
You got a
another
history
quick
wrong.
factoid.
Classic thing everyone knows about.
Another quick factoid. Life is Strange. I don't know if this is true for the third one, but I do know that at least the first one was made in Colorado. So that's like extra points for it and also extra points against it. In that, like, how did they had the fire danger and they're from Colorado?
If it is, it's so weird. It's if that's true. I've never actually looked too deeply into the studio. If that's true, it's weird that they wrote that they somehow
I'll have to
knew
look into that
Colorado
further.
well
Well,
enough to do that, but like missed the entire like. No
If-
one is.
If Hunter Call of the Wild is dying, let me just give it a quick
Strange
eulogy. I promise I won't take
Yes.
any more time because we're already
All
like
right.
pretty behind. But like Hunter Call of the Wild gave me a lot of things this year. One of them is like survival from boredom, from being unemployed for like a full year, which is the first time that's ever happened to me in like a very, very long time in my life. And it gave me something that like felt like progress and was actually like, it literally challenged my understanding of like what hunting is and what the relationship between biological, like human interaction with prey items are, and really made me question, like on stream publicly, a lot of my previous like conceptions about hunting, which is a very popular thing in Colorado. Being from California, I wasn't exposed very much to that culture, but I sure as hell am now at my job all the time with older males of a different generation. And like, I do appreciate that interacting with the community on stream did kind of like I wouldn't say question, but enlightened my perspective on it. I still like, don't all the way agree or am ever going to be a hunter in my entire life permanently as a thing. But like bow hunting was really interesting, and the like relationship that it asked of people who eat meat but still judge hunters is very poignant to like something I'll keep with me for the rest of my life.
That's fantastic.
Mhm.
Yeah. A very well worded eulogy. Life is Strange 3 takes the round, lovingly labeled home territory, surprisingly good story, but not actually surprisingly good story. On to the next round, which contains a short hike and Earth Defense Force 5. I would like to call this round Flying Around the Earth.
Sure.
Like to call it,
That's good.
I would like to call it some funny little things.
Yeah. Maybe like
Little
in
things.
regards to home.
In
Aw.
regards to home.
I would like to call it campy.
Oh my
No,
god,
no,
that's so
better.
good.
No, you
No,
win,
it's
you
that.
win. No, it's just campy. It's just
Campy.
Campy
Campy is the best. That's you have to play both games.
If you play both games, you'll understand why I'm calling it campy.
No, it's
Um,
perfect. Flawless.
Okay.
All right. The first competitor in this round is a short hike brought by Shaunosaurus.
All
And
right. So,
take it away.
A Short Hike is a game that, until I was doing my research before this podcast, I didn't realize that it was made by one person, Adam Robinson Yu, and which makes me amazed and mad because both him and the guy who made Stardew Valley are just amazing Renaissance men now. Um, the music was written by someone else, and the music was also what brought me to this game. But it's a amazingly charming little game about you play as a little raven or crow. I'm not exactly sure what she is, but a little black bird, and her name is Claire. And she's visiting her aunt on a national park island. And Claire really wants cell service, but her aunt says that the only place to get cell service is the top of the mountain. And so Claire embarks on a short hike and meets all manner of extremely delightful characters. And yeah, this game is just packed with extremely good things, and I can't describe it without pitching it. So is it okay if I just move into the pitch now?
Go for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the graphics for this game are extremely innovative. They essentially what they did is or what he did, I guess, is it's it's CG graphics that are then put through a filter of pixelation. So it looks like it's pixel art, but it's rendered like it's 3D. It's hard to explain, but it's extremely delightful, and it gives it a very kind of retro and nostalgic feel to it while also being modern and new. Like I said, the music is amazing. The writing is my favorite part of the game, even with praising other parts of it. This game is full of extremely adorable comedy. It's just full of little animals who are making me laugh constantly. It has that that quality of humor that's kind of Brian David Gilbert McElroy's energy. That's just like wholesome weirdness that's kind of out of the blue.
It's good kid energy.
Good kid energy, and yeah, it's extremely good. I can't just describe things by calling them good. Anyways, the soundtrack is very good. The thing that makes me love this game, that's not just liking it, is immediately upon starting the game, you forget about your goal, which sounds like a diss, but actually that's why it's so good. It's like when you first jump off of the plateau in Breath of the Wild and you forget all about Zelda and all about Ganon and just want to ride a horse. That's the way this game feels. I played it through in about 2 hours, and I thought that I had done the whole game. I was like, wow, that was really cute and really sweet. Definitely brightened an otherwise crappy day that I was having. And I wanted to recommend it to everyone I know. And since then, I've played it through with a couple other people, and everyone has played it differently. Everyone has found a whole slew of things that I completely missed, even though I thought that I had played a full and hard, like, I thought that I had played a entirely whole and satisfying game, and they found whole sections that I had missed, whole characters and dialogue trees that I had just overlooked,
Whole mechanics.
whole mechanics that I just didn't find. But the thing that I really like is this game. It kind of has a critique on normal gaming play, where you're supposed to forget about the goal. This game is very much about like stopping and smelling the flowers. It's about losing yourself in nature, getting lost in the woods, but not in a creepy way. And if you just go the straight way through, it's still really good. But the point of it is to lose yourself in it and to immediately forget what you were doing and just be extremely charmed by all the cute little things that you find.
That's
I-
absolutely wonderful. I got to see you play a very short amount of this, and the charm is immediately apparent when you're watching someone play it.
Yeah. Also, like, in danger of spoilers, like, the end is really, really heartwarming.
But yeah,
Excellent.
it's a good little game. It wasn't made this year, but it made my year.
That's a good tagline. Uh, Excellent. The other contender for this round is Earth Defense Force 5, which is brought by the Sunless.
A game which could not be more different and yet has so many similarities to A Short Hike. It's actually kind of fascinating. Because they're both games that are made by paring down the unessential. Um, they're games that are exactly what they are and no more. I should, before getting into the pitch, I should tell people what Earth Defense Force 5 is. EDF 5 is a game. It is a third-person action horde shooter, where you shoot giant aliens a lot, and that's basically it. Um,
And it's also really charming in its own way.
but it's really charming in its own way. The whole thing about EDF is that they knew that to be a good game, they had to get a few things right. They needed to make sure that their alien hordes were properly horde sized. You know, none of this 20 things on a screen at once limit. No, there's hundreds and hundreds. They needed to make sure performance worked when they had hundreds upon hundreds of enormous monsters. They needed to make sure the gameplay felt good and balanced, but also challenging. Um, and they needed to make sure it was readable. And they didn't need anything more than that, so they didn't put any effort into it. That wasn't exactly those things. And what they managed to do is create the single, like, the game that is the most fun I have ever had.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just straight up the most fun. Like, it is cheesy as hell. It doesn't look good, but the comedy is absolutely on point. Some just hilariously perfect dry lines that come out of like where this game came from. Because EDF 5 came from one of those buy one disc get 20 games bargain bin at Walmart styles. I mean, it's over in Japan, so it wasn't Walmart, but it was just like, here's this crappy little game that we made, and we don't even have enough money to model aliens, so we're gonna steal the ant model from a nearby from an ant game on the same disc, blow it up 300%, and have you shoot those instead, and then call them aliens as if no one will notice they're ants.
I love
And
that. That's so good.
Yeah,
it's
it
just
has
it's a
very like B movie energy, which is
it's
really strong in the modern like meme culture.
it's pure B movie energy. Like that entire thing, the entire game is full of just giant versions of Earth animals. There's giant ants and there's giant bees and there's giant pill bugs that roll at you and they suck and I hate them. Um, and they're never mentioned that they look exactly like ants and bees and pill bugs. When the real aliens show up, they're these frogs with like living, life support devices attached to them and huge guns, and they're like 5 stories tall. And all the humans are like, oh my god, they have 2 arms just like us and 2 legs just like us. They look just like humans. It's uncanny. And they're bipedal frogs. Like you look at them and they're bipedal frogs. And then the super aliens come out and they're just grays, right? They're gray aliens, 2 arms, 2 legs, kind of human face, and taller. And everyone describes them as horrific and horrifying and like nothing I've ever seen before. And they're monstrous and terrible. Uh, and absolutely no mention that they look almost exactly like humans.
Yeah.
Uh, and it is so funny.
So in the interest of time, and so
Yes.
I'm gonna say this as we should do a vote, but I'm going to vote for A Short Hike, but this is because I want to hear the maximum amount of time given to Earth Defense Force 5 because I also love that game.
That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, like that's totally fair. I'm still gonna vote for EDF 5 because, like I said, it's the most fun I've ever
Sure.
had.
And I hope
Yeah.
that
In a
you'll
video game.
allow Hale Noxid and me to have a bit of the pitch also for EDF 5 because Hale Noxid also has very, very fond memories from the earlier Earth Defense Forces.
Hmm.
I'm voting for A Short Hike. I'm sticking by my pick.
A Short Hike.
Yeah.
Earth
sure.
Defense over here. I
Hell
remember when
yeah.
you first played it, and it sounded incredibly funny, and it had an interesting concept that I had never considered before. When you mentioned how what's the easiest way to make a jetpack? And you have a weight limit. What's the easiest way to knock 50 pounds off of something? Make them all women. I was
Yep,
like,
exact.
that's brilliant. I love it. I want that in all my sci-fi. That was probably one of the I've thought about that
Yes.
So all
endlessly
the
since
jetpack
then.
people are women.
I love
Well,
that.
not even just that, just I've thought about it with NASA. It's like, hey, why don't we, how every pound costs, X amount of money to get into space? Why not make them all women? That'll drop your average weight by 50 pounds.
Yep.
Hmm.
I think that was such a wonderfully, weirdly brilliant concept that I've thought about a lot since then.
Noxid, are you there?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, I am voting for a short hike.
Did you play a short hike? Did you play EDF?
No, I have not played either of these games,
Ah,
but from listening to the testimony.
No, that's totally fair. EDF is a fun game, not a good game.
yeah. Do you have anything more to say about it? Like,
I have
should I
so
No,
pick
much
no,
it?
more to
we're
say.
gonna say
Yeah.
stuff about it after we vote as eulogy time. This is to maximize eulogy
I
time.
have voted for a short hike, and that brings us to a short hike as the winner of this round.
Okay, great.
Okay.
No,
And
yeah.
now I want to hear that eulogy.
I
I'm
was gonna
really excited
say
for it.
for
As
Hail Noxid's comment, like it's a fun game because it's a bad game.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense, it's
When
so
I-
bad it's
It's-
good.
When I was watching
Except-
videos of people playing this game, it made me feel the feeling of being 11 and just wanting to watch like bad sci-fi movies and play as monsters, and I want that childish energy back. I think this game looks very fun.
I also want the next mode to be where you can be the monster instead.
Oh, that would be fun. So yeah, let me give a solid eulogy to EDF 5 because EDF 5 is, well, I think offhandedly you can describe it as so bad it's good. It's not actually bad in any of those ways. It is just exactly good enough, right? Like the music may not be particularly memorable, but it's not bad and is absolutely just good enough to work. And the graphics, while not knocking it out of the park, um, are they're readable and unique, and you can definitely like you see what's going on, and they're not so ugly it's offensive. They're absolutely good enough, right? And but the sound effects that needed to be good because you got to feel good when you're playing the video game knocked it out of the park every time. Sound effects top tier, uh, and like the gameplay, the gunplay depth absolute like top tier, top notch stuff. Everything feels unique and different, and so I, as a chronic alcoholic, just built new gun builds for every single mission over and over and over again, just to make it how like, and they all worked and they all felt different and they all played different, and there's tons of just really smart little things that go in, like how the vehicles work. They're really heavy and I would say floaty, but they're not. They're realistic. So it feels like you're getting in a tank and not a car with a that has a big bullet that goes where you click on it, right? Like you have to care about traverse speed and turret times. So there are reasons for you to get in a tank and reasons for you not to get in a tank. Um, and like I said, the maps may not be pretty, but they're huge and feel like what they're supposed to feel like. Like there's a beach level that's big enough to have a whole ass beach invasion on it
Nice.
because you need to have a beach invasion for an alien invasion game, and so the beach needs to be big enough, and it is. And so you can have your mechas and your tanks up on the hillside overlooking the beach, and the scale is big enough for those guns and those and like that distance to matter. It's not just, oh, here's the beach invasion. It's 20 feet wide and fits 4 ants on it. It's no, it's enormous. It is absolutely huge. You need a a proper ranged weapon or a mortar to hit the other side of it because it's an invasion movie, right?
Yeah,
It's not a
some of the commentary was like some of these levels feel as big as Breath of the Wild.
yeah,
Nice.
like there's
Wow.
a at towards the end of or at the end of the Botwa when you're fighting off Dark Beast Ganon and it's
Mhm.
at the huge open field,
Yeah.
and because it needs to be for that giant thing to exist in. Yeah, that's every map. And it doesn't need to be that way because there's one big thing in it. It needs to be that way because there's 3,000 ants, and you need to be able to fit all of the ants in this enormous field, and then you have weapons of the scale needed to defeat that many ants
Yeah. Instead
in a
of
believable
Epona, you're
way.
riding a tank.
You're on a tank, and your jetpack buddy is charging up a super mortar riding on the back of your tank because fuck it, why not, right? That's cool.
Yeah,
Uh,
Nice.
so I wanted to like make that structure of like it's so good it's bad to knock it down as a typical like straw
yeah.
man debate expert would, which is it's not bad at all. Like the thing about it is like all the classes are really unique and satisfying, and it's different games every time you play it, and it's really fun as like Hail Noxid and I played it as a sleepover game, and it's really easy to pick up and learn, and it's fun as hell for the entire runtime. How many hours do you have on it, Sunless?
Too many. One thing I really wanted to mention that you brought up the classes is that not only do they feel different, but they feel different skill wise, where like the the skills or the classes that are supposed to take advanced training to work, you kind of like you're bad at them when you play. Uh, and then as you get better loot and get more skills, you get more adept at handling their unique, like yeah, their unique quirks, and they become the most powerful classes in the game.
Yeah,
But
the
without
one
them,
example that
they're
I
really
wanted to bring up
bad.
is the radio guy. Like, he doesn't
Yeah,
have a gun, he has a radio, but that's the strongest thing you can have in a world like this.
yeah.
It's to
It's
call in airstrikes.
yeah. You don't have a gun. You have a gunship, and
Yeah.
just the ability to you just plunk out a little beacon, and then God shoots a shotgun shell at this ant, and it squelches into 100 pieces and goes flying over the hillside. Is It's phenomenal. It feels so good, and it is so fun the whole time.
I really appreciate how they make it readable, they make it parsable, and they don't make it, you know, a pain to look at despite having so many things on the screen at the same time. Because I've seen so many games struggle with that. And it seems like this game really hits it home as far as really good game design in a true game design sense, in all the areas that you need to pay attention to. And that's great.
Noxid, do you want to
Uh,
take a crack at it before we move on?
It is the only game where you can have three giant robots, Sock'em Rock'em Bopper, um, Godzilla, and that's fantastic. It's quick fun. I think that was the distinction that Sunless was right to point out. It's not fun because it's not so bad that it's good. It is like kiddie pool fun. You are comfortable to jump in it. Um, it it has it's like thigh high kind of waters of depth to it, but man, is it a blast to play.
Yeah, I like
Um,
that reference to approachability, because that's a big problem with games that I ran into with Hunter Call of the Wild, is it's not very approachable.
right. And I think that is like honestly the strongest thing that EDF5 has is the fact that um, cold with your friend who got you to buy the game and download it and boot it up, giving you zero instruction in 5 minutes, you're able to play that game and have fun doing it.
Yeah. Fun within the first 5 minutes, I think, is a great metric that will come back later in the podcast and could be retroactively applied to many of the previous podcasts that we've covered.
Mhm.
Is this game fun in the first 5 minutes?
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Mhm.
And what a great round. The winner is a short hike with a stunning eulogy to Earth Defense Force 5. And that wraps up the preliminaries. With that, I'd like to, with that introduction done, I'd like to get to the main part of the contest, which we all talk about the spiciest salsa that we had. Which I think I had something from King Supers that was pretty spicy. What about you, Mason?
Well, my spiciest salsa was actually at work. There
Wow.
was an expert spicier there, and he was a Boulder native, and his friend owns like a hot sauce shop, and he put some of that hot sauce. I think it was like some spectral arrangement of peppers, some otherworldly pepper, perhaps a
poltergeist.
specter of some kind, a phantom.
The poltergeist pepper.
Yes, poltergeist peppers, I believe they were called. And he put them in the salsa, and that sent everyone who was already at the hospital to the hospital.
Wow.
Dang.
What about you? The sunless, spiciest?
The spiciest?
Yep.
Well, you know me. I had some mayo on a sandwich the other day, and that was pretty much the limit.
Yeah,
So.
yeah.
Wow.
He's from
so
Minnesota,
spicy.
people.
Carbon speed dating, spiciest of the year.
Oh, geez, I'm not super into spice. I do love salsa though, so I've been mixing a lot of corn and bean salsas to make some Spanish rice. So I never really go
Fantastic.
above medium.
Fantastic entry. Hail Noxid was the spiciest salsa.
I have the spiciest salsa in my fridge right now. It is on a burrito called the A la Diablo shrimp burrito. It is a shrimp burrito from Satan himself.
Wow.
And,
Oh, is that like the taco shop down the corner, Satan himself?
Yeah, Satan himself. It's actually my food truck.
Well, I think we can all agree Shaunosaur has the spiciest salsa of 2021.
And that's it. That's a wrap.
I don't know if I have very spicy salsa. I think the spiciest salsa that I had this year was ramen that I accidentally made too hot.
That's
Wow.
a very spicy salsa.
Those
Is
ramen
ramen also
ramen at
salsa? I think the
Shaunosaur
answer is
made
yes.
too
Okay,
hot.
those ramen packages can be like way too spicy if you get the wrong
I would-
ones. And
I would venture to say the accidental spice is the spiciest.
the accidental spice is the spice you regret is the spiciest.
It's the spice you
Yeah.
don't see coming.
Yeah.
And the spicy ramen is the winner of this year's spiciest salsa of 2021. Now that we're done with the smaller podcast, we can get back to the larger podcast, which is the not semifinals, the semifinals, the
Quarterfinals.
quarterfinals. is a
Do
much better
some
word.
sports.
Do some sports. Wait, hold on. Is do some sports your title for this round?
Yes.
Wow.
Sports.
Okay,
Does
real
that
quick.
work?
Do we want to pause this for another time? We're already 2 hours in.
It's a good point.
And could we
I
do
think-
it for another time?
I think we can get through it. I mean, we've talked through most of them at this point. I think if we could be direct, they're like not really going over the same. We don't have to talk about Psychonauts really again.
Sure.
I'm down to keep
Noxid, how's
going.
your voice holding up? I noticed you coughing earlier.
It's alright. I mean, I'm choosing my. I'm
Choosing
timing
inputs very
mine.
carefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Selecting my time to strike.
Yeah, so I think since we've already talked about half of these, I think it would be good for us to spend the bulk of our time describing the new one and then only talk about the previous one in how it relates to / contends against the new one.
Agreed.
makes
And
sense.
and this
Okay.
way we don't have to repeat what we say if we were to stop and start later.
Sure, but
Exactly.
even with
fair.
that, we've gone through 4 conversations so far. We have another 4, and then another 2, and then another 1. So that's 7 at least conversations in the future. So unless we really, really speed it up, the mountain is still left to climb. We're not even halfway through the conversations total.
No,
When
we're
you
more than
put it
halfway.
that way,
No, we're more than
We
halfway
did
because
have
all we
a
have left now
intermission
is
on
one from
our-
each, the 3.
well, you haven't heard me talk about Death Stranding yet.
It's true.
Yeah, that's half an hour right there.
I think also in the quarterfinals we've got. I mean, literally every single one of these games. So the first round, there's a lot of games in there that kind of went through my fisherman's net, so to speak. I've played every game. That is a new entry in the next one, and I have words.
Yeah, the quality of the matchups is only going to increase and get
So I
more
wanna
painful
give them
as
their
we go
due.
on. So let's do one more, okay? Let's do one
Okay.
more, and at
Sounds
least we'll
good.
cover Outer Wilds and Psychonauts 2. All right? Will, knock it off. Or start it off.
I have brought the obvious winner of the year, Outer Wilds. That's not true. Outer Wilds is a beautiful game that I can't talk much about because I highly recommend going into it mostly blind. However, the things that I can say are a absolutely tight gameplay that brings stunning visuals and the true moments that I come to when I play video games that I seek. Um, it is a space game where you play as an alien who is exploring their solar system, and uh, it has a very quality theme of archaeology that uh, puts the story at a level that I will remember for the rest of my life. Um, I absolutely love Outer Wilds. And on top of the storytelling, it's just so fun to play and so fun to fly this spaceship that it all comes together to be maybe even my game of the decade.
Yeah, so I think we should vote just to be as fast as we can, and then maybe we can get another one in. For me, it's Outer Wilds, like hands down.
I'm gonna go with Psychonauts. I haven't gotten to Outer Wilds yet, although I'm quite looking forward to it. Yeah, but I had
I'm
a
also
lovely time with Psychonauts.
I'm also looking forward to Outer Wilds, but I haven't played it. So I'm gonna give my vote to Psychonauts 2. It's real good.
Sure.
I'm gonna give my vote to Outer Wilds. I haven't played Psychonauts, but it looks very good. My reason for voting Outer Wilds is that the genres that it combines are some of my favorite genres and are genres that are rarely combined, and I'm very excited to play more of it.
Nuxid?
Well, I'm the split vote. It looks like. To avoid a tie, we'll go with Outer Wild. An out of context conversation Zeus and I had was Zeus telling me, I don't think it's what you think it is. Uh, was what changed this game from like a cool kind of 4 hours of like messing around to like me investing 15 more hours into the game to figure out what that meant over the course of the next 2 days after that conversation.
Yeah.
And because it literally was like the precipice of really the kind of the drop of the first roller coaster hill, so to speak, in the plot line. And it was it's well worth it. I'm having a blast playing it so far.
Yeah, like just my one sentence pitch to like convince anyone on the fence who's like, even the audience members who are listening is like, Outer Wilds can and will change your life. And like Psychonauts 2 is a great game and it's fun, but it's not at that level, like spiritually and emotionally.
I mean, it could be for some people.
Sure.
Maybe it
I
didn't
mean,
hit as
I've watched and played both, games. Like,
fair.
anyone who finishes Outer Wilds, I think will understand.
Yeah. Outer Wilds also does very unique things. I mean, both of my entries, Outer Wilds and Inscription, do alarmingly unique things that I've never seen a video game do before. And I think that the way that Outer Wilds handles progression is not only truly unique, but something that I'm surprised that no one else has done. Dang, I wish I could talk more about this. I mean, some of me wants to
Yeah, it's okay. It wins 4-2.
postpone
We should move
purely
on quick.
because, yeah. All right. So with the round winner going to Outer Wilds, the next round is It Takes Two, which won the previous round, versus Potion Craft, brought by Shaunosaur. Would you like to give an explanation of what Potion Craft is and a pitch for it?
Well, real quick, this one will
Okay.
probably be contentious enough to be our last one for the match.
Sure.
So feel free to give it a full rundown.
Okay. Well, hang on. Let me look at my notes real fast. Okay. So the full title is Potion Craft Alchemist Simulator, and it's developed by a studio called Nice Play, which is also a very small indie studio started by one person. And it's a game about making and selling potions. You have a little apothecary and you grind up herbs in your little shop, and various villagers come to you asking for potions for their various ailments, or potions for blasting themselves across a ravine to fight an ogre. And you have to figure out, okay, like what's this person asking for, and what do they actually want, and how can I figure out how to make that for them? And the tactile elements of this game, it scratches that brain itch that I have for making things. Like the sound design in this game alone, it fills my heart with that satisfying feeling of having made something that everyone enjoys. Because you'll pick these herbs and you'll put them into your mortar and pestle, and the stones will clink as you manually grind them up, and then you toss them in your cauldron and you stir it and it bubbles. And that's only an element of the mechanics that makes this game really cool. The other thing is that the map, the mechanic for making the potions is a map, and each herb, each ingredient that you add moves your little potion across the map, and you slowly discover different areas of the map that unlock the effects. So it's a mechanic that I've never seen before, and I really enjoyed that. It also has an honor system that's used for the villagers who come to you for your shop. They're planning on expanding on the honor system in the next update. Like I said, it is a early access game, which honestly I think is points in its favor, because I already really enjoy this. I liked it enough to bring it here, and it's still just in early development. And so the honor system, if someone comes to you and says, hey, I need a vat of acid, no, I won't tell you why, you can say no, or you could say yes. And your reaction to them will determine the kinds of villagers you get in the future, and your reputation as a shop, and I think potentially later on, the kinds of potion merchants that will come to you. Hang on, what else did I have in my notes?
Yeah, it's also important that like each of the cardinal directions corresponds to a element that these ingredients represent, which is like an old druidic idea, and it's also in Chinese mythology as well, or Chinese herbal medicine. But yeah, it's just like very insightful. Each of those like puzzles of which ingredients to add to get which results, and then the specifics of like drawing it in with the water and like discovering all the things that you can do on your own with the game not telling you like how whirlpools work. Each of those are great opportunities for like true genuine creativity that is that like open style of play where you're not just following a quest marker or a waypoint. It's actual freedom on the map.
Yeah, it's very explorative and very experimental, which I think works for a game about being an alchemist. There's an element of science to it. And there's also a haggling system, which is interesting. But I want to get into why this game is important to me. And that's that it's a game about making things and running a little shop and having various people in the town come to you because they value your wares. And as somebody who's trying to make a business as an artist, I feel like this game is like a very specific fantasy. Like there's the fantasies of going out and hitting ogres with sticks. And then there's the fantasy of just wanting to have a cute little shop in the village where people come to you for your craft. And I don't know, I feel like there's not a lot of games that are just about having a satisfying job that you love. And this game does that for me. And I feel like that's really important.
It reminds me of Reciteer, if anyone played that.
Mm.
I know Zeusver did.
Correct. I wanted to
Absolutely.
highlight one of the things. I mean, I want to go to bat for Potion Crafts because I think it does something astoundingly well when it comes to video games as a genre. I think while we're living through this birth of a new art medium, it's easy to miss the beautiful ways that gameplay and the things that game craftsmanship can bring to telling a story. And I think Potion Crafts does an astoundingly good job of having a gameplay metaphor that truly gives you the emotions and the feeling of being an expert at this craft and discovering things. Through this metaphor of traversing this map with various ingredients, you go through these motions that if you look at from the outside truly looks like you're doing magic, like you're doing alchemy. And but to you, you can visualize, this expertise that you and your character have. It is a perfect metaphor for the mental, the way that this character thinks about their craft. Uh, and it's beautiful because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the the beautiful thing about Potion Craft is that it nails the metaphor better than any other simulation game, better than Reciteer, which was you bought things, you sold things, you went and hit enemies with a stick, but it didn't really feel like you were crafting. And this game really nails that.
Mm-hmm.
I really love that you can save your ingredients and like your recipes in the recipe book. Perfecting that and like truly finding the most efficient recipe was like a lot of what that game was for me. And I did like the same one over and over and over again to truly find like what is actually like in the world, in globally, out of everyone playing this game, what is the most efficient way to get to this spot. And that was like a huge point of pride for me. So like the game has so many of those the player motivations that Sunless always talks about like why do you play, for like mastery or control or story or all those ones in the burgeoning idea of like game intellectualism and game as an academic field of study. And that's just what I really loved about Potion Craft. Also just like really cute game. Like the art style is fantastic.
Yeah.
The music is great.
Sorry, I forgot to mention the art style. The art style is what brought me to this game. The entire thing is painted like a Renaissance painting, like with the bad proportions and like awkward side view of people and everything. It's it's very silly and very good, and I've never seen any game designed like that. I do hope that they update the music though. The music is great, but if you play it for longer than an hour, it gets extremely grating because it's one beautiful song, but it's on loop. And it's an early access. I'm sure they'll add more tracks later. I also want them to add stuff like I really want them to make it into a dating sim because I want to date the cute herbalist girl and the witch girl.
Yo, yes.
It seems like it could be a dating sim because you develop rapport with the various characters who keep coming back to your shop and the various merchants who you meet, and yeah, I'm excited to see what they do with that.
Yeah, I
I
think
was impressed
also
how much
like
story they added into this, what game they have so far.
also this game like as its final pitch had like Zeusfer running upstairs to tell me about potions that he just made. Like this is a game that makes you want to like tell your friends in a way that's like pre-Wikipedia Wicca, like having wikis
Yes.
for every single game, and it's like very word of mouth. It like actively creates a community of like problem solving. Like we played this game with Carbon Speed Dating for like multiple nights in a row of like 5-hour play sessions. So like anyone who thinks this game like doesn't have legs or is too short, even though it's in early access, like I think I've dropped like 57 hours on this game.
Nice.
I just am waiting for it to be on the iPad.
Yeah,
It's
it
the
would
It
world's
be,
does
most
have
perfect
that effect.
iPad game,
it
and
would be
yeah,
so
it's
good.
wonderful.
That's my pitch. That's everything I got.
Okay, so do we want to
Yeah.
vote?
I do want to mention something about It Takes Two that I didn't get a chance to
Sure.
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
go round, is that I really respect It Takes Two's approach to character work, because there really are only three. Well, four technically, but no one counts the book. There are really only three that matter, and they let the main two characters. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but they let the main two characters, like, it's not just a switch and their problems get better kind of
Nope.
thing, right? They got some stuff to work through, and they work through it, and they backslide, and they make leaps
It's
forward, and
it's about relationships, and it's very honest in a lot of the portrayals that it has for it. It's like,
yeah.
hey, these problems are not you didn't, wash the dishes. The problems are you're not listening to my deepest fears. You don't understand why I am behaving the way I am, like because you're not asking the right kind of questions.
Exactly. It does a thing that I like to see in RPGs, where instead of just like having them be really good people and or giving the player ultimate agency over whether or not they're doing better or worse, it's like, no, these characters are going to do this thing, and you being that character now, you got to do it too, right? Like, it's not just, press A or B to save the orphanage or kick a puppy. It's press A to do the bad thing, because that's what the character would do in the moment, and you kind of gotta, because it's necessary for the plot. And I really admire the game for having the the bravery to put that level of like uncomfortableness in in a game like this. It's really good.
This is really hard because I absolutely love potion craft, even in its early access state. But um, I really appreciate It Takes Two, and I did buy it the instant I saw it because I am looking forward to playing through it with someone. And Potion Craft is in early access, and I had to put it on hold because I got to the extent of where it, of what it offered, and I was left wanting. So I think my vote for this round goes to It Takes Two because Potion Craft is still not a finished game.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to mirror that as well. Like, the thing is, I loved Potion Craft and I played the hell out of it, but I could see where its edges were pretty quick, and that's because it's new and it's not out yet. But again, like when we're talking about game of the year, like
Yeah.
in an honest way, and like I appreciate that this is like a fun conversation we get to have with friends, but there's also some integrity here with what we pick as game of the year and what actually deserves to climb that mountain. And It Takes Two, I think, is a critically acclaimed like miracle of genre, and like that idea I think is quite frankly like stronger than something that still has text needed here as one of its lines.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah, I think Potion Craft will probably be my game of the year next year.
Yeah,
No,
Once
I
it's
I'm
done.
I'm with that.
Because I also plan to play it a great deal, and I enjoyed it a great deal. But in terms of
Mhm.
just everything I'm looking for from a game, especially being able to share it, It Takes Two is going to be my vote.
Yep.
Exactly.
Put
Yeah, like
down.
Potion Craft I really really enjoy, and I'm very glad that I was able to represent it on this podcast. Um but I also ran into troubles playing it. Like after a while I physically did not have the resources to complete the quests, and there was no physical way for me to get to them, so I had to just restart the game.
Oh
Just
wow.
because it's still in development, and I ran out of the herb that goes up, and the herbalist girl wouldn't come around, so I had to just
You
disappoint.
can run out of ingredients physically in the game state right now, as of like January.
Yeah. So it does need lots of tweaking, but I really love it as a game. I agree for next year, for once it's done developing.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that because this is all making me want to dive back into potion craft, but I know where it stops. And that wraps up It Takes Two as the winner, I believe. I didn't get Hale Knox's vote. Do you feel the same?
Oh yeah, I'm with It Takes Two.
Okay, great. So do we want to stop there for the day?
Yes,
And
but we can look
continue next
forward
time?
to the next matchup, which is Inscription versus Life is Strange 3,
Oh, I'm so excited to talk about this.
as well as A Short Hike going up against Death Stranding, which we should come up with the name at least for that round because
Walking
it's
sim.
pretty obvious.
Walking sim.
Yeah.
Quote,
A falling
oh,
sim?
open quote, walking, close quote, open quote, simulator, close quote.
Yeah. No, it's like a mountain to climb with or without ghosts.
Yes.
Well, look forward to next time, which should be coming soon. I'll send out my my notifications, and I'm glad we at least got through the spiciest salsa of 2021. The ramen that Shauna accidentally spiced too much, and that sums up where we are today. Thanks for joining us.
All right. Peace out, guys.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. This was
Good
super
night,
fun.
everyone.
Bye.
I'll see you all soon.